Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, Necro Thursday, and we're coming at you with this week's episode of the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. How's it going, Jeff?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Life continues to be good and very, very positive stuff going on. Really, really happy that things are going well. And, it's just looking forward to the spooky season. This is my favorite time of the year, and I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I used to do a horror movie a day back maybe 10 years ago. I haven't really been able to pull it off, but I'm going to try to do it again this October.
Yeah, actually, I'm on the same page, man. Like the last 2 years have been just like these incredible downers for me. So I haven't really had the gusto to engage in that activity in October, but this year is different. So I'm going to get back into the 31 days of Halloween trip.
Yeah, I miss doing it. It's so much fun. I mean, I don't really do much. I work. I kind of go to work early. I come home late. But a good way to unwind is watching a movie. And something about the change of the seasons just makes I just want to watch nothing but horror movies.
Yeah, I mean, I usually love watching horror films, but there's just something cool about doing it with like intention, like this time of year.
Absolutely. We got some good ones picked out. One of them was from a listener mentioned, and it made me remember, like, oh, yeah, I have that. I got to watch that again. So we're going to try to start it off with that movie, Alibaba. And I got a bunch of old black and white movies that I bought but never watched. And now it seems like a good time to finally watch them.
Yeah, that's something I'd actually want to cover. I remember that caller recommending Alibaba, and that's something I'd be interested in doing as a proper episode at some point.
Yeah, we've really got to go through all the recommendations. There were some really good ones in there.
Yeah, we've been trying to. It's we've definitely been trying to get through a lot of that. Some of the stuff has come to pass, and we've done it. But a lot of people have a lot of good ideas out there, so we're trying to hit every one of those.
Absolutely. Have you been watching anything lately?
Yes, actually, a couple things. Well, I watched the first episode of the new American Horror Story.
The one with the Kardashians or whatever?
Yes. Well, the one Kardashian's in it.
Oh, it's just one. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm a total mark for American Horror Story. I mean, I watch it every year. I don't give a fuck. It's like, I know it's debatable whether or not it's good, and I just really enjoy it. Last year's I thought was cool, like the kind of riff on cruising in New York City in the 70s. I thought that was a cool idea. This year I only saw the first episode, and it's definitely like I would say Rosemary's Baby if David Cronenberg directed it and wrote it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's we'll see how it pans out, but like it's fun. It's I only watched one episode so far, so the verdict is out. Kim Kardashian is not a good actress.
Shocking.
Yeah, and it's made plain when she's doing scenes with like actual actors. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah. So it's like, there's no Evan Peters, which he's been a mainstay of the show for a long time, and I always enjoy his work as well.
Yeah, good actor.
Yeah, and I just reread a Robert E. Howard book called Almeric, which it's one of his lesser known pieces. And it's a full-length novel. It was serialized in Weird Tale. It's like way back in the day. And it's kind of like a pastiche of like a Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter of Mars kind of thing, where there's this guy who lives on Earth. He gets teleported across the cosmos to this barbaric planet. And, and that's basically the whole plot.
Sounds interesting. I definitely have to read more this Halloween season. I keep saying every year that I'm going to read more, and I never fucking do.
There's a ton of great stuff out there to read, especially in the horror genre. And lately, I've I've really been embracing all this like pulpy stuff, like Robert E. Howard and Burroughs, Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Hmm.
And Carl and I have been doing that Carl Edward Wagner rundown of In a Lonely Place on Everything Went Black and Soul Knox, and that's definitely fed my appetite for that type of fiction.
Nice, nice,
What about you?
cool. Well, I I've been working on this project here in my house. I finally got shelves for all of my DVDs. So, as I've mentioned a million times, all of my Blu-rays, DVDs have been in boxes for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And finally took them out of the box. Finally got the shelves built. So I'm just kind of like organizing it. They've been in boxes for 5 years, but every once in a while, I dig through them to try to find like, oh, I know I have this. I want to watch it. And some things you don't put back. Some things they get disorganized, and then I moved, and now I realize I'm missing a bunch of stuff. So this last week, I kind of gotten back into buying physical media,
Nice.
and yeah, it's been about like 10 years, I feel like, since I've really um, stopped collecting. And so I took a trip down to Waterloo Records, and I picked up a few Criterion Blu-rays.
Nice.
And I got Polanski's Cul-de-sac. I got Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life, and David Lynch's Inland Empire. And
Oh man.
started rewatching that. And yeah, that might be an interesting movie to talk about. I mean, it's a horror movie in a
Inland
way.
Empire? Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that in the theater actually when it came out.
me too. Me
Yeah.
too. What was that, 2006?
It was a good one.
Yeah,
scary.
it's interesting.
It's scary to think about how long ago that was.
Yeah, I know. Like, it seems like the latter half of my life has just flown fucking by. It seems like it was yesterday I was living in New York, and it was really like almost 20 years ago at this point.
I can picture exactly what it was like going to the theater to see that movie. And I saw it, I think, at the IFC in Manhattan. And
That's where I saw it.
it seems like yesterday, dude.
Mm. If you remember, it was really cold. We had hit like a really cold spell in New York.
Yeah. We might have been in
And
the same theater, actually. Imagine that.
I don't know. Yeah, the theater. I went during the day with Randy,
Mm.
our mutual friend, Randy Larson.
Right.
And it was me, him, and maybe like two other people in the theater. So unless you were one of those,
Yeah,
those people.
I saw it at night, like after work one evening. And I just remember it being really cold.
It's quite a way to end your workday. 3 hour David Lynch movie.
Well, it was important to see it in a theater because I don't think I've ever seen any of his other films except, oh, actually, that's not true. I saw Mulholland Drive in the movie theater and Inland Empire, and that's it. Everything else has been like, DVDs and VHS tapes and things like that.
The first movie I saw in the theater when I moved to Boston was Lost Highway. I went with my future bandmates, Aaron Turner and Chris Marischak. And I went to see Mulholland Drive. Do you remember that theater in the Prudential Center in Boston?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I used to go there all the time. I saw that there. And it was, I think, completely empty.
Actually, I've been to that same theater during those years. You know what's really crazy? I only lived in Boston for like 5 years.
Dude, I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, yeah, I lived in Boston for what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
It was 7 years. Like,
No, it was
tops.
it was like literally 5 years I lived there, but it seems like such a huge part of my life was spent in that city.
Yeah, dude, I feel the exact same. I think as I moved there when I was 19,
Yeah.
and you go from 19 to 26, 27 I was when I left, you go through a lot in those years. And yeah, so that's probably what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of stuff happened in those years for sure. And but yeah, it was only like 5, maximum 6 years that I lived there.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. One more thing I watched I wanted to bring up to you. I rewatched Body Double because you and Mike covered it like a month or so back.
That movie rules.
Dude, I have not seen that since I was I don't know, 12, 13, 14, somewhere. I was really young when I saw it, and I don't think I had seen it since. And man, what a movie. No one makes such well-made, trashy movies like De Palma. Like that was his era, like the 80s, I think, the early 80s.
Yeah, that movie is so sleazy. And once again, there's like the ongoing conversation that me and Mike have about American Giallo films. And, that Dress to Kill, that all neatly fits within that sort of classification, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely. Uh, what do you think De Palma's last good movie was? Like, I feel like it's been since maybe the 90s since he really made a good movie. Early 90s?
Yeah, probably. I'd have to really look at his filmography to come up with that. I know Mike from Pennsylvania hates De Palma.
Really?
He's not a big fan, apparently. Yeah, I mean, through his
Well,
voicemails and whatnot. You know.
hey, different taste,
Yeah.
Like,
But also, I haven't heard from him in a while. Hope he's doing well. Mike, if you're out
yeah,
there,
yeah,
drop us a line. Let us know how you're doing.
yeah. Maybe rewatch, Body Double. See if maybe you see if you change your mind.
Yeah. Before we get too deep into the episode, I just want to shout everyone out. The other horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, aka the podcasting Illuminati. I like that one.
Hmm.
Right, the elite, with our
Yes.
war against mediocrity. We're looking to provide the very best in media to you guys. So, kicking the week off, we have Brandon Legion with Horror Wolf 666. Tuesday, every Tuesday, Jackie Smith brings you into the Necrosphere, which is literally the only music-related podcast that I regularly listen to. Wednesdays, everything went black. I started doing that like years ago, and it's like a pretty eclectic bunch of subjects, a lot of stuff on there. Pretty wide net is cast. Thursday is, of course, is Necro Thursday, which you all know if you're listening to this podcast. Friday, Break the Apocalypse comes to you. Sunday is the day that Soul Knox is deployed by Carl Hakara. We've been doing this collaboration talking about Carl Edward Wagner, which I mentioned earlier. And then lurking in the margins, too free to follow a regular schedule, we have Iblis Manifestations, brought to you by Cheyenne of the great band Trivax. And that's it.
There you have it.
Yeah. We also have, we touched on the fact that we have a voicemail line and the Necrophone, and you can reach us at 908 913 0782. That's 908 913 0782. So give us a call. You can say whatever you want, make recommendations, that kind of thing. So to kick things off, we got two voicemails. We got Travis from Michigan.
Hey guys, this is Travis from Michigan. A longtime listener, first time caller. I'm a real big fan of the show. I've been listening to you guys a couple of years, and because of you guys, I've discovered, the Horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse, and I listened to Horror Wolf and Into the Necrosphere. Everything Went Black, and I just started checking out Soul Knox, and I just wanted to express my gratitude. I know a lot of us out here are real busy and don't have a whole lot of free time, and you guys are part of my weekly routine, and the amount of stuff that I've discovered through you guys is just huge, and I'm still trying to work my way through it. So thank you. It's rare I get to see new movies these days because of my time, but I did watch All Eyes and Death Metal. Both were recommendations on Horror Wolf 666, and I enjoyed both. They were both really fun. I don't know how much you guys like Funeral Doom, but I've still been listening to the new Bell Witch that came out a handful of months ago. It's still part of my rotation, and with the fall coming up, it's just very fitting for the mood. And I'm just not sure how you guys feel about that type of music, but I'm a big fan of them. But once again, I just wanted to express my appreciation for your guys' podcasts. And I'm a big fan of your guys' work outside of podcasting. All of your guys' bands I've been a fan of for years. Scandato, I'm just kind of discovering the stuff you do, and so far I like it. And I was hoping that someday you guys can put together like a podcast apocalypse hoodie. That'd be awesome. But yeah, thanks again for everything, and I hope you guys have a great week. See ya.
That was cool. Thanks for calling, Travis. Appreciate it. Glad you enjoy the show. And next up, we have Jason from Seattle returning. Welcome back. Glad to hear from you.
Hi, Necromaniacs. This is Jason from Seattle again. I had two more recommendations for you. I thought felt appropriate for the seasons and the weather changing. It's getting a little bit colder. The first one is the movie Black Mountainside, which shares a name with a Led Zeppelin song, oddly enough. Not sure if you've seen it. It's really good. It's a sort of a not Arctic, I guess, but like a Canadian, like North isolation movie. It kind of has like a feel like of The Thing a little bit, but it's definitely not. It's more like almost like a long X-Files episode for a movie. Pretty low budget, not terrible special effects. It's a good tense plot. I really enjoy it. I think it's a great movie to watch as the sun starts getting darker earlier and the leaves are changing. It's getting colder. Fantastic movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And the second recommendation is a music recommendation. I had mentioned Last Voyage of the Demeter last time I called. There is an entire series by a record label called Library of the Occult. They're doing lathe cut 7 inches by artists on their roster based on the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. Really great. It ranges from kind of like 60s sounding, symphonic, there's psychedelic sounding, there's like giallo sounds, even kind of gothy, like almost Bauhaus kind of sounding bands on there. It's all on their Bandcamp too, digitally. If you miss out, I've missed out on a few of them. An excellent thing to listen to during the October spooky season. All their records are great. I love them. Even their non-Dracula related material is fantastic. Library of the Occult. Check them out. Really enjoyed the episode on History of Violence. Killer movie. Super underrated. Wish Viggo Mortensen had done more than that in Eastern Promise.
Now, Black Mountainside. If you go back to episode 75, we actually covered that movie, and it is a good movie. It's definitely a cosmic horror. You mentioned that it's similar to The Thing in some ways. It's like a very, very limited budget riff on that kind of thing. And
yeah.
Have you seen that one, Jeff? I don't know if we have talked about this one.
Yeah, you and I covered that one.
Oh, it
right?
was me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, right on. All right. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, no, I really liked it.
Yeah, it was good.
What would make a good double feature is that and Larry Fessenden's The Last Winter.
That's fucking a great idea, man. Maybe that'll be something we'll do in our Halloween nightly viewings. That's a cool double bill, man.
Yeah, that's due for both of those are due for a rewatch from me. And did you not interview the filmmaker for that?
I did. Yeah, that's
right.
Also you can find that. That's when we kind of dipped our toe in doing interviews on Necromaniacs, and that was a cool interview.
It was cool. Yeah, it's fun to have those every once in a while. Throw people for a loop. To have an interview on here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the move was to, make Necro all film, review type discussions. And I think that now I've been doing more of the interview stuff on Everything Went Black.
Yeah.
And with the exception of like if an Addams Family movie comes out, we might do like a special because those guys are, they're friends of the show. You know what I mean? So they get special
Right.
treatment. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I have not. The Library of the Occult, that's something brand new to me. I never even heard of that.
Same. Yeah.
But it sounds cool.
It does.
Yeah. So that brings us to this week's episode. We're doing The Woman in Black, the 1989 version. There's another version that's out there, or another film with the same name. Is it a remake, or what's the story with that other movie?
It is, I guess, a remake since this one did come first. The remake was 2012.
Yeah.
But I mean, the filmmakers may have never even seen this version because this is also a book by Susan Hill and was made into a very successful play that has kind of traveled. I saw it in the Pasadena Playhouse. Which, when you think of Pasadena Playhouse, sounds like a swinger party or something. But obviously, the play originated in London. The play's been going for a long, long time. If it's playing anywhere near you, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. But this does have some things in common with the '89 film. So I would imagine that the filmmakers for the Harry Potter version, the Daniel Radcliffe version, are at least aware of this. You've seen the remake, right?
No, I haven't seen I haven't seen the remake at all. I wasn't even aware that it existed, really.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be interesting for you and I to talk about off air. I'd love to know what you thought of that.
Yeah, I'll try to watch it over the weekend, maybe.
Yeah, I broke out my copy of it this morning, actually, because I did a rewatch of this last night as we're about to talk about it. And I remember going to see the remake in the theater. I was very excited to see an updated version of this film. And all I can say is I was disappointed.
Oh, okay. But yeah, this movie came out December 24th, 1989. It's like you said, it's based on The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. The screenplay, however, was done by Nigel Kneale. Now he's a pretty well-renowned British, screenwriter. And if anyone's checked out the Quatermass series, have you seen any of those movies?
I'm well aware of those.
Oh yeah,
but
they're great.
I think I've seen one or two ages ago, but it's been a long time.
They're very dated, but they're awesome. And yeah, it's like they're cool movies. I really enjoy them, especially it has like that Lovecraftian kind of vibe to a lot of it. You know what I mean? Which I always appreciate that. A little
Sure.
folk horror kind of thing thrown in there. But in the U.S. though, he was also did the screenplay for Halloween 3, which is one of my favorites.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, in Prince of Darkness, though John Carpenter wrote that, he's credited, his last name is credit. He changed. He has like a nom de plume. It's Quatermass and that.
All right.
Yeah. So
I learn a new shit every
Carpenter's
day.
he's a big Nigel Kneale fan. So any of you guys who aren't familiar with this guy's work, definitely check out some of the stuff. He's done a lot of British TV, a lot of BBC stuff, and it's all worth checking out. Like once again, I said it's somewhat dated, but still very good. Also directed by Herbert Wise, and the film is 103 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that the writer had worked a lot in British TV. This was actually, I don't know if you said this already, this was a made-for-TV movie.
I did not say that, but it seems I can see that, definitely.
Yes, this didn't play in theaters. This was released on Christmas Eve, too, in 1989. Well, it's funny that um, I was just talking to someone about how horror just kind of hits a little different on Christmas. It doesn't have to be a Christmas themed horror movie, but when I saw that this was released on Christmas Eve, I was like, oh yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I agree. Like this, it has a wintry vibe, so I can see it hitting really good around that time of year.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
And has a little bit of that British made-for-TV feel to it for sure.
yeah, yeah. So some of the main cast members, we got Adrian Rollins as Arthur Kidd, Bernard Hepton as Sam Tooby, Pauline Moran as the Woman in Black, Claire Holman as Stella Kidd, that's Arthur's wife, John Carter, not of Mars, uh, as Arnold Pepperell, and yeah, I don't know. There's like some other people in this. There's pretty nice looking cast in here, and of course there's Spider the dog who plays like a big
Yes.
role in this.
Yeah, this almost, I mean, not a big cast. There's really only one character that you follow through the whole thing.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's pretty much all about this guy. And any of you guys out there who have read M.R. James, the British author, this movie hits a lot like an M.R. James story, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
Count Magnus or Whistle and I'll Come to You. These kind of ghost stories, these like kind of like vibes like that. You know what I mean? And it has that, and then also some of Adam Neville's short stories hit like there's like reminiscence of this movie, and I think in some of Adam Neville's work too.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, Mike, you said you weren't familiar with the remake. Wasn't sure when I mentioned doing this if you'd seen this before.
I haven't actually. This is a brand new thing to me. I only knew about this through you, I think, or someone had talked to me about it, and I'd never seen this before.
It was probably me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me though. I mean, this is pretty obscure. You watched this on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's available anymore, but anywhere rather streaming. I even tried to rent it and it wasn't available for rent. So any guys out there, if you don't have a hard copy of this, you can find it on YouTube. It's the Woman in Black 1989.
Well, some interesting things I found. This, like I said, it aired on Christmas Eve. It did not air on the BBC again till 1994. And apparently this was a big hit, it's a big critical hit, but didn't air again. I found out about it. My mom owned a copy of this on VHS and saw it as a fairly young kid, however old I was in 1989, 1990, 13-ish. And I ended up tracking down a copy of this on Amazon, but it's a burned copy. It's not an official release. This didn't really get an official release until 2015, and it's only a Region 2 Blu-ray, and also that is out of print.
Huh.
And it's strange to me why this is so obscure, because anyone who's seen it that I know of has really enjoyed it, and it's very well regarded as one of the better ghost stories.
Yeah, it just might be some kind of licensing thing. Who knows really why these things fall into obscurity.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I mean, this is like I think a textbook example of how to tell a really good ghost story. There's not a lot of frills. There's not really special effects. There's no jump scares. Okay, well, there's one big scare, but I don't consider it a jump scare. There's no loud music cues, anything like that. It is just a simple story executed very well.
Yeah, and I would say, there's this term that people throw around these days called quiet horror,
Yeah, okay.
and that's kind of like what this vibe's like. It's atmospheric, not too slow moving, but not a lot really happens. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, very true. I think by today's standards, it would be considered a little slow.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm very much into kind of like slow stuff with like a lot of dialogue and that kind of thing, and this falls within that because a lot of it is told almost like a narrator would tell it. You know, like there's this whole part where Kid is like dictating some of the things into a primitive recording device, and there's parts where he's listening to these like recordings and things like that. So it has like that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was rewatching it last night. How it's not really exposition-y. The dialogue it comes naturally. It's through conversations with people. This movie follows Arthur Kidd. It's Arthur Kidd. It's different in the book. I know that, but they changed the name to Arthur Kidd for whatever reason. I don't know. It's like in the Wicker Man remake. It's Summer's Isle instead of Summer Isle. Who knows?
So you read the book?
I read about the book. I saw the play, but I have not read the book. Funny enough, yesterday I went on YouTube, and it's a book on tape is on YouTube. So I'm going to do that this season.
Nice.
So anyway, like this is a period piece. Didn't say exactly when this took place. I would assume it's like the 20s.
Yeah, definitely like early 20th century. You know, they have cars, you know, and they have these primitive recording devices and things like that. But it's definitely like, yeah, like the 1920s or something in that range.
Yeah, and like all this stuff is new. Like at one point, I remember Arthur was seen to be really get a kick out of like the house had, electric light, and he seems to get a real kick out of that recording device. I got a kick out of looking at that. I was like, man, that looks fucking complicated.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I really like, the setting is such a big part of this. Like if this was took place in like, 2020, it's not the same tone or atmosphere. It's something completely different.
Yeah, and that's why I like period stories like this because there's like a lot of unknowns, a lot of unknowable stuff from that period of time. Like, you're cut off from things in a different way, and it's more like singular. Like if you're in a cabin, like we'll get in. This is how it relates to this story. But if you're in some remote house somewhere, back then you're there by yourself, like for real.
Yeah.
Like now, you can text or FaceTime or whatever. Like you're like never really alone these days.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be sending texts to people like, this house is haunted AF, LOL.
LOL. Haunted AF. Hashtag ghost.
Yeah. And, it made me think the period piece, like, what did being rich back then really mean? Like you had electric light and,
phone.
Yeah, there was just nothing to do back then.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just one of the random thoughts that went through my head watching this. But so yeah, we meet Arthur Kidd. He's a young solicitor.
Yeah, it's like he's similar to like Jonathan Harker. He's like one of these like guys who settles legal affairs for people.
Right. Yeah, and he's something about this actor I wrote down is he reminds me of Sting, of a young Sting.
I can see that. Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. All right. I just had to get that out there. I was like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe someone else will agree with me. Reminded me of Sting. And he's kind of a chipper guy. He is probably like, if you work in an office, you probably know a guy like that. He's very popular, kind of smiling all the time, cracking jokes. Has an asshole boss with a stiff upper lip. And he is tasked with settling the affairs of Mrs. Drablow, who recently passed away. He is to go to her town, settle her affairs, and sell this house. And he meets Sam Tooby on the way. So right away, when he's tasked with settling her affairs, there's already, you can see that his boss doesn't want to go and do it himself.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's like a vibe of Kid being this like not a junior member, but also not quite a senior member of the staff either. Like he's a guy where he's not in the beginning of his career, so he's in that middle period where you're kind of like trying to fit in more with like the upper senior level guys, and his boss kind of comments like on that, how he's like, if you have a career in mind, you can't be fraternizing with the junior members of staff. And he's like, what's that on your sleeve? And there's like some mustard or something like that on his sleeve, and kind of commenting on his appearance and that kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly. He's in that phase of his career. Is like, this could go one way or the other. So do this for us and things are going to go better for you.
Yeah. But there is the sense later on that you get to feel that like, his boss did not want to go out there, and that kid is kind of like this like sacrificial lamb in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing too. Almost Wicker Man-ish, like you're being sent to your doom in a way, and you don't know it.
Exactly. And there's like similarities between like Dracula and like Wicker Man, because similar to Harker, he had to go out to with Harker, he was like facilitating the move of somebody, but it's like he's going to some remote place out in the hinterlands and to do a job that has to do with like real estate and the affairs of some well-off person.
Right. And you can tell he doesn't want to go, but this is going to help his career. He's got a wife, a son who's maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4, and a newborn daughter. And he doesn't want to leave them because his boss is like, it's going to take a week. And he doesn't want to go, but he's got to do it. And he meets the Sam Tuvey, such a great British name. I really like the names in this. I know it's Tuvey and Eel Marshhouse and Drablow. Like, it's very good, made up names.
Pepperell, that's another good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And Sam Tuvey strikes up a conversation with him on the train and seems to take an interest in the fact that he is settling the Drablow estate at the Eel Marsh house. And he lets him know, look, if you need anything at all, please talk to me. And I don't think Arthur Kidd thinks much of this at first.
But as he gets to the town, the Drablow house, this has like a bit of a reputation. It's like somewhat infamous in the local town, and people are reluctant. They think it's not such a good idea for him to go out there.
Right, but no one's saying why. You do like people are saying, oh, you're going to be the only person at the funeral. No one wanted anything to do with that old lady. And what I like about all this too is the audience isn't ahead of the main character. There was no intro explaining who the woman in black is, what any of this is. So you're learning the information along with the character. And I like stuff like that. I hate being too many steps ahead of the person you're following in the film.
Yeah, and the whole setup of this thing, like I said, it reminds me of like this kind of Count Magnus, like M.R. James kind of vibe, where you're out in some remote part of England, or in this case, it's England, and there's like this scourge or something, like there's like a rich person, like a landowner, who the townspeople are either afraid of or they hate them for some reason. But there's bad blood between the townsfolk and this, quote unquote overlord.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how he learns that. I love the scene, like in the place he's staying at, the old British, I guess, the hotel, and they're all like having like this communal dinner, and they have these huge pieces of bread with this really like hardcore homemade looking butter.
Yeah,
I know it just felt very like real. Like it this felt like it was. Like, it didn't feel like you were watching people dressed up, pretending it was 1920s. It felt very real to me.
Yeah, and it touches on that kind of folk horror trope too, and where it's like the town folk, and that's like I see that a lot in these types of movies and in this type of fiction, where there's like the very salt of the earth, rustic folk, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I picked up on that too. This does have a folky horror vibe. I mean, while it is a ghost story, it's also sort of a curse movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also learned that the only way to get to the Drablow house, the Eel Marsh house, is through this like causeway. There's no road that takes you out there. You have to go to this causeway that's submerged at certain times of day by the tide.
Yes, and no one wants to take him.
I kind of love that. Like I kind of like
Oh,
in some alternate future, I think I'd like to live in a house like that.
oh, absolutely. Oh my God, I love it. But so yeah, he goes to the funeral like he's supposed to, and he sees a woman in black, a mourner, he thinks, and he doesn't seem to pick up on that no one. He's like, oh look, there she is. No one wants to look at her.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a local solicitor there who attends the funeral with him, who's sort of helping Arthur out. Yeah, right when Arthur says, "Oh, look, there she is," he kind of turns away and there's these kids kind of hanging around. He yells at the kids to run away. And I don't think Arthur is picking up on any of this. You know what I mean? Yeah, it hasn't sunk in that he's in a dire situation.
Yeah, exactly. And the town is aware of this sort of stuff, but he's pretty much in the dark about it.
Right. And I like when he does finally he takes get to the Drablow house. I like that it's just a house. Like there's no real ominous shots of it. It's just a house, a big empty house. Like there's no effort into make it look creepy or anything like that, and that makes it a little bit creepier to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not like there's like some thundering sky and rain and like these big gothic, windows and doorways and vaulted ceilings. It's just a house of like a, well-off person would live in.
Yeah, and it's not in disrepair or anything like that. It's just an empty house, and there's a good scene of him sort of wandering through, looking into doors, and so you get like a sense of how big the house is. He finds one door that's locked. But what is interesting about that scene too is before he starts to go through the house, he's sort of wandering the property. There's a graveyard on the property. Okay, which I'll give it that. That's creepy.
Yeah.
And he sees the woman in black again, and this time he's scared, and this time the audience gets a better look at her.
Yeah, and she's got like this kind of she's in like a black metal band or something like that. like pale, like black around the eyes, like that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like she's in like Cradle of Filth or something.
It was cool. Like I liked that it showed a close up on her face. And she's just looks like a person, but a little off. Like you said, like yeah, black metal.
She's in Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, but what's funny about that
synth.
happens.
Synth and Cradle of Filth.
Playing synth or like drum pads or something. So that happens. He's obviously scared, but then he just kind of goes through the house like it didn't happen, and he finds a recording device, and he's very fascinated with that, and he records the sound of his own voice. I guess that's what you did when you were bored and rich back then. You whistle a little tune into your recording device that probably weighed like 100 pounds.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I think people they read, they fucking did chores. Who knows? Maybe some people like wrote, did stuff like that.
Yeah, well, they didn't know. They didn't know anymore. I'm sure 100 years from now, people are going to look at what we were doing and just be like, God, these people must have been bored out of their minds.
Yeah, like in 100 years from now, they're like traveling between dimensions and stuff. Like how'd they get by without this?
Yeah. Hey, we talk about it all the time on tour. Like, how do we ever tour without cell phones?
Yeah, and I have vivid memories of having like a whole notebook of like MapQuest directions printed out, and a road atlas, and that was basically how we did it.
Yeah, and if you like lost the page of that, like you were fucked.
Yeah, you had to go to like a place where you can get online and print it out again or something, you know.
Yeah, Kinko's was a big part of
Kinko's.
your touring schedule. Yeah, you know.
Does Kinko's even
Um,
exist anymore?
that's a good question. I have no idea.
Someone let us know. Leave us a voicemail.
Yes.
Does Kinko's exist?
Yes, if you are a Kinko's manager or were, please let us know. We want to hear from you. All right, so I think Arthur Kidd is finally, I think, becoming somewhat aware of what's going on. He's seen this thing, this woman. He's listening to these old recordings on this recording device, and they're ominous, kind of telling a story of Mrs. Drablow, who seems afraid of someone stalking her,
Yeah.
of coming for her.
Yeah, we learned that, her sister, Jeanette, she had a child out of wedlock, and the Drablows adopted the kid, you know, just because that was what you did back then. You couldn't have children outside of wedlock.
Right. Yeah, that was a big thing back then. You know, again, you know, there was impolite or something like that.
Yeah. But Jeanette didn't like this, so she collects her son and tries to escape across the causeway that is partially submerged partial. It's not partial. It's completely submerged part of the day.
Yes. You got it out there. You got it.
I got it straight now. Okay. But the horse becomes trapped in the marsh and sinks, and they're killed. So, you know, that's the nature of all this disharmony out there.
And he knows this because he hears it. He hears these sounds coming from the marsh of horses and people screaming and a child screaming. And really like that moment the first time he hears it, and the dread is just starting to build for him.
And that's really what this movie's all about, man. It's just like this feeling of like impending doom and dread and fear and intangible things affecting your psychology and stuff like that.
Yeah, and isolation, like we were talking about earlier. You know, he's at this house alone. You know, no cell phone, no connection to the outside world. And it's scary. He does go back to the mainland, and has a conversation with Sam Tuvey, and Sam asks, "How did it go?" And that's when Arthur says, "I think you know. I think you know how it's going."
Let me ask you a question. How many people in today's society would just crack without having that level of contact?
Oh, everyone?
Yeah.
I mean, I always try to like put myself in that situation. What would I do? How would I react? I'd be gone as soon as I saw the woman in black.
Oh yeah.
You know,
as soon as things started getting weird, I would be out. I wouldn't even stick around.
Yeah. No way. Even like Sam Tuvey gives him his dogs. Like, well, when you go, if you really insist on going back, take my dog. So now he's got a companion.
Yeah. You know,
and even that, you know, you can't talk to the dog. Well, you can talk to the dog, but it's not going to talk back.
Yeah. You know, in spite of the dog, you know, animals have like this, like, you know, uncanny sense of things. You know, that's kind of like what Spider plays his role, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like things are kind of going along, and then the spider will start barking and kind of staring intensely at something. And one of the better scares in this movie too is just that door that we saw locked earlier. He goes back up the stairs, and it's open. Very simple, but so effective.
Yeah. No, absolutely, definitely, 100%. So Kid becomes sick. And, you know, I guess the stress and all this like supernatural shit going on takes a toll on him, and he gets sick. And then when he recovers, he goes back home to London town to his family.
And he's a changed man, to say the least.
He's no longer the happy-go-lucky kid, the life of the party family man that everyone knew him as.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say he had like a, almost like a Lovecraftian character where he had seen something that really shook him up and changed the way he sees everything. He's probably not a guy who thought too much about this stuff, but here he was having, he had a contact with a ghost, with a few, because the house also, there's a spooky child's voice kind of going throughout the house that keeps giving him a toy soldier. Like he can't seem to get rid of this thing.
Actually, it's funny. I had that noted as well, that he is kind of a Lovecraftian character, because in a lot of his stories, there's madness that ensues from some kind of interaction with the beyond. And that's exactly what happens to Kid here, is that he observes this whole thing with the woman in black and all this supernatural stuff, and he comes back a completely different person.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he's not the happy-go-lucky guy, and he gets really mad at his boss. And I felt like he would never have done that before. When he said, he stands up to his boss, like, I think you knew what was going to happen, and you sent me anyway. You didn't want to go.
Yeah. Also, some of his juniors at the office noted that there was a customer waiting for him.
Yes.
A woman dressed in black.
Man,
black.
I
like a widow.
Love that. You don't see it. You're just hearing his coworkers tell him about it, and it sends a chill up your spine. It's creepy, and yet it's just dialogue exchange. You don't actually see that happening. It works so well.
Drablo ends up, Kid starts going through all of his stuff from the Drablo residence and looking for the toy soldier that was passed to him, but he can't find it this time around. And then he just incinerates all the stuff that he brought back with him.
Yeah,
and also burns up
down his office.
Most of the office as well, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the boss, sends him to the house, gives him his papers,
Yeah, exactly. But at that point, he doesn't give a fuck. I think Arthur knows he has somehow put himself in harm's way. Well, one thing we do learn that there is a curse. This woman in black is somewhat of a curse. Whenever people see her, a child dies. And Arthur stopped that. He saved a gypsy kid.
Oh, yeah, that happens
the words
way
of
in
the
beginning.
film.
Yep, that's right. I forgot about that.
And
yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of put him in harm's way. And he mentions that to Sam Tooby when he saw the woman in black, he felt the hatred in her eyes. He felt hate, that this thing hated him specifically. And I think now he knows he's put his family in direct danger. They don't say that, but I think he knows it. You can see he's unraveling. He just burned down his office. A sane person doesn't do that.
So the way this whole thing concludes is he's out. Arthur's out with his family, and they're boating. They're on this lake, and of course he sees the woman in black levitating over the surface of the water, and a tree falls and kills the entire family. And they drown.
Wife and 2 children.
Yep.
Yeah. Credits roll. The end.
Yeah, like it has almost like a burnt offerings ending. You know what I mean?
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
That's spot on.
Yep.
This was very unexpected. Dour ending for a made-for-TV British movie that aired on Christmas Eve.
Well, you got to remember the British also brought us, The Cure and Joy Division and Bauhaus, and, Morrissey and all this stuff too. So they're a dour, morose folk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. But I would put this in one of the darkest endings to a movie I've seen. That's up there with the Mist.
Yeah, I could see that. I agree with you on that completely.
I saw, like I said, I saw this when I was 13. Really affected me and got under my skin, and couldn't stop thinking about it. And even watching it last night as an adult in a dark house, I was done turning it off. Again, I'd go to the kitchen. I found myself turning lights on to walk across to the kitchen. It stays with you. It's incredibly spooky. And they do it with very little. Like, the woman in black is maybe in the movie for 2 minutes, like, you just see glimpses of her here and there, but it's used so sparsely that it's effective. It works really well.
Yeah, it was good, man. And you know what? I think if you go to the Necromaniacs Facebook, along with this episode, I'm gonna post a link to this on YouTube, because that's literally one of the only ways you can watch it, unless you have the DVD or something like that.
Right, and the quality on YouTube isn't the best, but like I said, I saw like basically a ripped copy from a VHS, and that sort of adds to the atmosphere of this thing.
Yeah, I'm just looking right now real quick. Yeah, it's even hard to find a hard copy of it too.
Yeah, it is. It's a damn shame.
I definitely am gonna read this though, for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to the book on tape. But okay, your first time seeing. What did you think? Like, what would you give this?
Oh, I loved it. It's very, very much very British, very much in that M.R. James vibe, which I love. I'm a huge fan of his. There's like some Lovecraftian subtleties, like the trajectory of the character of Arthur Kidd, follows that sort of, decline of a typical Lovecraftian character. And the atmosphere, the whole trip of the movie. So for me, it's a 4.5 out of 5 easily.
Great. I'm really glad you liked it.
Yeah.
I give it a 5. This is a top 5 horror movie of all time for me. I love it. I loved it when I was a kid. I love it now. I can't find anything wrong with it. Like I said, this is a very simple, efficient storytelling. No special effects, nothing like that. There's, I think, maybe one shot of blood in this whole thing. This is a PG 80s horror movie, and it's one of the scarier films. We're all adults now. Things don't, we don't really get scared by movies very much these days. But this one scares me. It's creepy, spooky. It gets under my skin. I love this movie. It's a Halloween staple of mine. I don't watch it every year, but maybe every few years or so. And it's one of those too, like when I started dating my girlfriend 6 years ago, this was one of the ones I was like, oh, you gotta watch this. We gotta watch this. I love to show people this movie for the first time.
Yeah, it was solid. And like I said, I'm going to post the YouTube link along with this episode so you guys can check it out at your your leisure. But yeah, it was a good one, man. Thanks for bringing this up. And this is a solid film.
Yeah, and people listening, please check this out. Follow the link. I obviously watch it before you listen to this.
Yeah, we spoil the shit out of it. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we did. And half of the fun is watching this thing unfold and then just getting beaten over the head with that depressing ending. It's a day ruiner for sure. But please check this out.
I'm going to be on the search for a hard copy of this. Hopefully someone like Severin or, Arrow someday does like a proper Blu-ray release of this.
I'm going to protest outside of the office of the Criterion Collection until they put this out. But yeah, you're right. This needs to be, this needs a wide release. This is a great movie, and horror fans would eat this up. And it needs more eyes on it. It needs some attention. Like, yeah, you said, like, when I looked for a physical copy last night, and I think there was only 3 available from like a private seller. So This is a very obscure movie.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for listening, everyone. And we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Take care.
torch of flickering